Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show for Wednesday. It is February the 4th. Thanks for joining us. I heard the voice of my father. If you guys don't know that, that's who does the voice of our intro. So when I hear my dad's voice, I know it's time to go to work, just like when I was a little kid. Today's title is a little bit silly. RINOs thwarting the MAGA agenda. Tom Massie votes like with the Democrats again. I'm being a little bit tongue-in-cheek here. I got a real problem with what the perceived MAGA agenda is and then what the actual reality of what goes on. So we've got some stuff from Jeanine Pirro, who's the United States Attorney in the District of D.C. It sounds like she had to go do a hostage video yesterday. I have my own little take on this, you guys. Sometimes I see things and I cannot help but see the movie scene that goes along with it. And the Jeanine Pirro story is part of it. And I just got a text message from a popular streamer on Rumble, who many of you will know. And I read it and I went like, yep, I see the same thing happening in the Jeanine Pirro case. I see this scene, which is not very nice, from the movie Civil War, which I watched on an airplane because I don't think I'd want to share it with my wife. And it was an okay movie, to be fair. It was kind of like one of those Obama productions that we saw coming out of Netflix. But there's this scene in there where this guy asked the question, what kind of American are you? And we all kind of look at it and we go, I don't even know what side that guy was on. He was wearing fatigues. He was wearing camo. He's got the glasses that are kind of like pink and Elton John looking. And that's kind of weird. But, it showed the ugliness of what a civil war might look like. And I was reminded last night and this morning reading this text message coming in. It was Dan Bongino tweeting about his triumph of the highest streaming numbers in the history of the universe or something like that. And I was reminded of the movie Training Day. And last night, my wife and I watched kind of a similar movie to Training Day, which is called Crown Vic. I asked some of my cop friends if they had ever heard of Crown Vic, and they had not. It was a 2019 movie, and it's not bad. It's not a bad film. Probably worth your time if you like a little bit of grittiness and retribution. The end of it got a little bit ridiculous, I thought, as well, because it just it's one of these kind of police type rookie Training Day type movies where the guy goes in on his first shift and he experiences like an entire year's worth of insanity on patrol in one moment. But I was also reminded by watching that the end of Training Day, which is kind of like the guy who thought he was the king, who thought he was bigger. King Kong ain't got nothing on me. And how does that movie end? It ends pretty badly for the person who is incredibly cocky. And so there's an old maxim that says either humble yourself or be humbled. Some people may experience that soon. We're going to be talking about the problems with fake news. And not the way that Donald Trump talks about it. Donald Trump often talks about fake news equals news I don't like, which may or may not be accurate or true. I'm talking about actual fake news. When people generate fake clips, when they go out there and they push a narrative and they use AI to move things along that, that continue their perspective, but do not actually represent reality. And there's a good story that NBC News covers to kind of remind us, kind of amusing, because I'm pretty sure Donald Trump has called them fake news as well. I want to talk about the funding bill that made it through. It was passed yesterday in spite of the quote unquote RINOs, who I tell you are the real conservatives. And you, if you are a conservative, you're a RINO. A couple of other interesting things that are going on in the world. The attempt to nationalize voting and the conversation about the SAVE Act, which is happening right now. And I do think that if we do not solve our election issues and the sort of theater that they are, I don't know how we get out of it. And then, of course, we're going to do a couple little things here. My buddy Steve Friend pointed out something on X this morning. There was a case that he was following that I thought was fascinating, and it actually tells you a lot about the FBI. So we're going to talk about a case that Steve Friend looked at in a small area in Florida. And the way that you can also lie, not using AI, but using the oldest way possible, statistics kind of the lies, the damn lies and statistics sort of thing from Mark Twain. So we're going to get a little taste of that. And so we're going to touch on something that happened in Florida, which was a lie, and the FBI is touting credit. Then we're going to kind of do a little reflexive because Kash Patel decided to go and talk to Bret Baier last night, and he brought up the Epstein files, and he brought up a couple of other things. And I want to do a side-by-side from his previous interviews with both Bret Baier and with Maria Bartiromo back in the day when Dan Bongino was sitting there. There's just going to be kind of some mashups on all of that. And then lastly, as we're talking about Epstein files, we'll talk about how the Clintons have decided to cave and they're doing theater. I think we kind of touched on it yesterday, so we'll do that too. All right, so that's what today's show is going to have. There's a whole bunch of it to get into. And let's start off with a read from one of our sponsors, the folks over at Cove Pure. One thing that is real is water, and you can get real water without a bunch of junk in it with one of these machines like we have sitting on the countertop for my young children. It's super easy to function. That's the nicest thing about it, is that you set it up in just a few minutes. You just push a couple of buttons. And if you've ever done one of these drip filters, which I do have one downstairs as well, it takes a lot longer. And there's a lot more sort of like margin for error where it can get screwed up, where you've got to actually run like a dye test through it and make sure that all the seals are correct because you're manually tightening them down. That's not the way this thing works. Cove Pure basically is like plug and play. You plug it in, you drop in a couple of their filters. They have two different types of filters. They last for a really long time, up to 24 months on the long ones, which is really nice. And so when you pop those suckers in, it's 15 minutes of pushing buttons and you can walk off and do something else. And then you get the clear wave technology doing exactly what it's meant to do, removing 99.9% of contaminants. They'll tell you the amount of contaminants it's finding in the raw water and then how much it's removed in the form of TDS, which is total dissolved solids. That's kind of nice. It gets rid of things like PFAs and microplastics and pharmaceutical residue and fluorides and all these things that my wife is really concerned about that oftentimes kind of escape me and were not things that I was tracking. What I do know is that it tastes better. We have really bad tasting water here in Central Texas. It tastes a lot like sulfur, which means like you're eating broccoli water from whenever you steam some sort of vegetables. And I despise that. It's the nastiest thing. If you guys want to have good tasting water, that also removes a bunch of stuff that probably you didn't want in there in the first place. Check out my friends over at Cove Pure. The nicest thing might be is that you can easily use it to get lukewarm water. You can get cold water. It'll come out chilled right out of there. Or you can get it hot, push a button, make your tea. We do that all the time here. When somebody's not feeling well, the kids will actually run upstairs and make a cup of tea. It's locked out so your babies can't figure it out, but your older kids can. So that's kind of nice. If you guys go to covepure.com/KYLE, again, COVEPURE.com/Kyle, Covepure, all spelled out, .com/Kyle, then you guys will save $200 on their machine right now. Get your order in, check them out. Again, we use this here. It's a really nice feature, especially the little custom button that allows you to set the size of how much you're putting out. When you have little kids and you want them to stay hydrated, my mom's solution when I was growing up is that they actually built a water fountain into our custom home in outside of Dallas, Texas. That may not be as easy as it sounds if you live in a rental like we do. So you guys could just put this for your countertop cleaning. All right, check out Cove Pure. Link in the show description. Let's get into today's program. Okay, so let's just get into it. When I start talking about RINOs, I need to start from the beginning, just in case you're new to the program. And if you are, welcome. Thanks for joining us here. We really appreciate all of you coming along. The concept of RINO, I think, is misused. I think that it is the supposition of people that hold a generally conservative point of view, or if you're relatively familiar with sort of my online ethos, I believe that the so-called bacon cheeseburger nationalists, so-called by me, it turns out, people who will eat a burger. By the way, I had a bacon cheeseburger last night at Hop Dottie's in Austin, and that was tasty. So that's kind of nice. My kids laugh, by the way, every time I go out and have a burger and they go, "Is there bacon on it, Dad?" And it's like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Is there cheese?" And I go, "Yeah." And like, there's also an egg and some tomato and stuff like that too. The bacon cheeseburger nationalist ethos represents, I think, a majority of common sense American perspectives. An anti-Republican Democrat sort of divide. I think that there are many people in this country that are post-partisan. In other words, they are beyond just partisan politics, like I'm on this team and this is what I want, and I'm on that team and that's what I want. But when I use the word RINO, I very specifically mean people who are conservative. So I flip it on its head. And I showed you guys something from Tom Tillis out of North Carolina. I got all this feedback. They're like, he's a piece of garbage. I'm not saying one way or another, whether Tom Tillis is great or not. I don't know or care. He's not my senator. What I do know is is that suggesting that the conservative agenda of shrinking the size of government, which has historically been what Republicans kind of ran on, being more responsible fiscally, letting the markets run and having less regulation, all of the ideas that we used to believe represented sort of the core values of the Republican Party. And that's what I grew up believing. There's no evidence that actual Republicans do that at all. There's no indication to me that the way that they vote and the things that they stuff into these bills and the way that they push it through is conservative in any way, shape, or form. And if it is, can someone please tell me what is it they are conserving? That was an open space for you to fill that in. What are they conserving? What is being conserved by people who vote for spending bills that give billions of dollars in foreign aid and a bunch of money in government subsidies and pay out a bunch of things for daycares, for immigrants and refugees? What do you get as someone who is hoping to have smaller government, shrink the size? Again, if we take Donald Trump at his word and the Agenda 47, the thing he wanted to do, what did he say? He was going to get rid of the IRS. You want to know how I know he's not going to get rid of the IRS? He's suing them for $10 billion. And it's his IRS, in theory, that gets to make the decision on whether or not they settle with the current president. That's gross looking. That's not, we're shuttering it. We're telling everyone to go home. We'll figure out how to make it happen legally later. We're desperately in need of something that is analogous to an American Caesar. An American Caesar who steps in and says, okay, here's the deal. I don't want to be in charge, but this country is off the rails. The scaffolding and all the things that are naturally required to happen have not happened. There's no reason that we should believe that the legislature is going to do what it's supposed to do. It's been shirking its responsibility since 1913. Then again, in 1946, it gave away all of its authority to the executive under the Administrative Procedures Act, all the functional authority. It can't get a budget passed, which is why they even had a budget act that was passed in the 70s. And we were supposed to, have a specific kind of budget. And all they want to do is cram all this crap in there, get a bunch of line items and stuff. They say, well, we have to fund the troops. We have to fund the this. We have to fund the that. And that's why we have to accept all this crap and slop and pork and garbage. And then everybody goes like, well, we got to fund the thing. We had a partial government shutdown for the last couple of days. Do you guys know that? Did anyone notice? Did anyone even notice at all that there was a so-called government shutdown other than the mainstream media, which covered it? The answer is no. I'll just tell you, I talk to people all the time, all over the place. I talk to federal employees. They didn't know. The parts of the government that matter were all open. The parts that don't matter, you don't even know they exist. There are government agencies who nobody even knows. The people who work next to them in the building next door don't even know that they exist. And if they disappeared right now, it would be fine. We covered that yesterday with this woman who had ridiculous glasses. She was like a black lady in her 50s talking about how her job was really important because it paid her six figures and that felt really good. I got another example of that out of my old ex-girlfriend, the FBI. There's this funny story that came out that James O'Keefe just put out, which is a personnel security specialist giving his inside information on what goes on in the FBI. There's 38,000 people that work at the FBI. Most of them have zero functionality. Most of them could go away. There's only 14,000 agents, and of those 14,000 agents, I'd estimate only 20% of them do investigations. And I don't think that's a bad number. Does that tell you how much waste exists and how much sort of fluff and garbage and porky, jobs program experiences are going on there? You got 38,000 employees, and I would estimate that probably 3,000 to 5,000 of them tops, and that includes the analysts and the frontline supervisors, are actually involved in the work that you consider to be the work of the FBI. The rest of them are managing data, and they're just taking up space. The people that are meant to work all the overtime hours are the ones who don't even get paid overtime. You probably don't know this. And guess what? None of my buddies who were FBI whistleblowers, none of them got back pay. So ain't that something? They can't even get simple things right, like calculate, hey, how much money do we owe you as required by this federal settlement that we voluntarily entered into and signed? I found out the other day that my buddy Steve Friend started having some movement forward. The DOJ is something, or the FBI is something like 5 months, maybe 6 months delinquent in paying back pay. And they owe like over $1 million to just a couple of guys from the monies that they being the FBI, agreed to pay. And it hasn't happened. So this whole kind of like reform, but with the same guys, That's why I did an entire show yesterday talking about exile or execution. There are only two ways to save your government. You need to exile the people that suck, which is a huge chunk of them. And the alternative is to execute, which means terminate their employment. I don't mean to hang them as many people would like. Just saying. All right. So this animal that you see on your screen is dysfunctional. This animal is the United States Congress. That's the building. Okay. That's where the most power is supposed to lie. And we're going to do a quick little refresher here. If we did not have a 16th and 17th Amendment, and I'm going to continue to harp on this because I just feel like Americans need to know it. These both happened in 1913. The 16th allowed the federal government to become the center of all the things that we care about for political power. And it did so by taking the power of the purse and giving it to the federal government. Your money is theirs first. If you can't refuse to pay taxes, like I can do that. I'm a 1099 guy, so like everything I do is on a contractual basis. Maybe I could pull away and not pay my taxes. It would probably suck for me in the end. I'm sure I would experience some wrath and a door kick. But if you're a W-2 employee, like most Americans are, or you get Social Security or any sort of government benefits, they take their cut first. That's mafiosa-like. That didn't exist for the beginning of this country. That's a second half of this country thing only. That's a 16th Amendment problem. The 17th Amendment broke this building. And what it did is it took the purpose of our two legislature branches. We have two little houses of Congress. One house is meant to represent the rabble, the people, the mob, the democracy, or whatever you want to call it. That's what it's meant to do. That's your representative, your congressperson. And there's some that are great and some that suck. And then there's the Senate, and it's meant to represent the states. I did a quick little AI check today because I was quite curious. What happens when you flip the 17th Amendment off and you stop the direct election of senators? Do you know what would happen? There would be a majority for the Republicans of 56. There are 28 states that have supermajorities red. And there are 18 states that are supermajorities in the blue. So it would be 56 to what? 36? Are my math right? I think my math is right. 56 to 36. You'd just be playing with about 8. There's about 8 different the Senate seats rather that would matter. And so we would flip to either a red supermajority or something that is so deeply close to red that it's not purple. It's pinkish. And so you'd be fighting for like 1 vote. And instead, they're talking about nuking the filibuster in order to get certain things through, like the SAVE Act. So we're going to cover the SAVE Act as well. All right. Allow me to tell you why I think this is such a big deal. It's because I'm sick of these freaking idiots lying to us and acting like they're going to do something, and then there's no accountability. None. Here's Mike Johnson. We just had a budget signed. They just did another omnibus. He explicitly stated there would be no omnibuses. Here's my evidence.
Committed to never being in this situation again. I'm done with short-term CRs. We're resolved. So what that means is you're going to see in the beginning of this next year, we'll be walking and chewing gum at the same time. We're going to get the appropriations process running on time as it's supposed to be under law. The Budget Control Act of 1974 has very specific provisions in there on how this is to be done. Congress hasn't done that for as long as we can remember. But we're going to get back to that because that's good stewardship. The American people deserve it. And the debt situation we find ourselves in necessitates that. So but overall, with the CR, as our leader just noted, we have broken the Christmas Omni, and I have no intention of going back to that terrible tradition. So there won't be a Christmas omnibus. As somebody asked me in the hallway a little while ago, will there be many buses? We don't want any buses. We're not going to do any buses. Okay, we'll deal with that in the lame duck, and I'm going to plead, I'm going to urge the Senate to do their job. As Leader Scalise noted, they have not done that. This is Chuck Schumer's fault. It is not the House Republicans that we're in the position where we have to have a resolution to continue funding the government at the end of the fiscal year. We did our work. We passed 12 appropriations bills through the committee process in record time. We put them on the floor. Almost 73% of federal funding has been passed through the House. We sent it all over to the Senate, and they've done nothing. They did not one bill, and they would not negotiate with us on the top line. So here we are. We loathe CRs as much as anyone, but this is the situation that the Senate Democrat leadership put us in. It would be political malpractice to shut the government down. I think everyone understands that. And so we hope that this will get done quickly and we get everybody back home to their districts to work and to the campaign trail.
This was the conservative play call. We don't normally like what's called a continuing resolution, a CR, but in this case it makes sense because if we push it into the first quarter of next year, then we have a Republican-controlled Congress and President Donald J. Trump back in the White House will be able to have more say over the funding decisions for 2025.
Okay, listen, here's the deal. We have to keep doing the thing that I said that we would never do. We have to keep doing CRs, which are continuing resolutions. We have to keep kicking the ball down and then like waiting until you're not paying attention, and then we can pass another omnibus. And the reason we have to do it is because various reasons. Number one, it's because it's the Senate's fault. The other reason is because it's the conservative thing to do. It's the good thing to do if we do what we said we wouldn't do. And the reason is because we need to be able to grow the government simultaneously, and that will allow us to eventually shrink the government with all the power that we've used as we've grown the government, and other bullshit as well. And Donald Trump is pushing really aggressively to have Thomas Massie primaried, who voted no on this stuff. You have a lying, squeaking, sniveling weasel of a human being in Mike Johnson. The first minute I heard him speak, I was like, this guy's a freaking liar. He reminds me of like a male version of Nancy Mace. Puts on the armor and the look at me, I'm a Jesus guy, and I'm gonna just say things. I'm gonna lie to your face and tell you that the slop is not slop. It's a delicious steak. They just want you to have your eyes closed and not understand anything. So yesterday, I read this from Massie, who voted no. Looks like they voted on it twice. The first time it didn't pass, the second time it did. There you go. And so I had a couple questions, and this is Tom Massie's post. This is the way that things get communicated a lot of times. Tom Massie's not my representative. I wish he was. I wish I had a representative that was like that. In the same way that I would have a Congress full of Tom Massie's, I would have a Supreme Court full of Clarence Thomases, and it has nothing to do with Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is not a conservative. I am. Donald Trump is not. I'm not mad at Donald Trump. He got my vote, but he's not a conservative. What I would like to do is see the executive do the job of the executive, which is execute the mission of Congress. That would mean Congress has to do the mission of Congress too. And if you have even a slight majority, then you should be able to do things that are conservative. They don't have that. In other words, I'm going to go back to the original supposition. RINOs, aka Republicans in name only, are people that run as Republicans because that's what's required, because people have this legacy idea of what a Republican is, and maybe you also represent that legacy idea of actually being a conservative. But in reality, today's Republicans are 90s Democrats. They are 90s liberals. And they're soft. And they're weak. And they're mealy-mouthed traitors. They're like Smithers from freaking The Simpsons, which is exactly what I think Mike Johnson sounds like. That's what he looks like, and that's how he operates. He just says things that are not genuine, and I don't believe any of it. So here's Tom Massie explaining why. And then it's not even just the why, because, you know, forget Tom Massie for a second. People have strong feelings about it. That's why I kind of put it out there. The reasons why he votes no is something I've covered it before. Just because you vote with the opposition doesn't mean you thought of it in the same way. If I voted to abolish the FBI because I want smaller government and I wanted less of it, and Democrats wanted to vote with me because they wanted to defund the police or have less law enforcement so criminals could go free, we would have the same vote. We would both vote to get rid of something. But the rationale and the motive matters, it turns out, in politics. Tom Massie says this, quote, I voted against the rule to bring this omnibus forward for a vote. Here's a breakdown of some of the most ridiculous items included in the omnibus and some of the America First items that were not. I offered amendments to correct these errors, all of which were blocked or refused. I ran it through the AI system. Every single one of these 7 funding provisions highlighted as quote unquote ridiculous items in the omnibus, known as the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2026, House Resolution 7148. They all passed yesterday by a margin of 3. It wouldn't even take that many conservatives to exist. They just don't. So here's what came through. Number one, $5 billion plus comes out to $5.16 billion for refugee, and they call it entrance assistance activities authorized by Section 414 Immigration Nationality Act. So we're going to give money for refugee programs via the Consolidated International Humanitarian Assistance Account. Terrific. Here's the second thing he highlighted. $315 million going to the CIA's branch of the State Department, also known as the National Endowment for Democracy. Isn't that interesting when you use the words like democracy? If you guys have listened to Mike Benz at all, who's been on this program a couple times, and follow this kind of stuff, this is all 100% blob. This is your overt funding mechanism to go and do color revolutions. So we gave another $315 million into that piece. $3.3 billion for Israel. Here's what it says. Israel, of the funds appropriated by this act under the heading Foreign Military Financing Program, not less than $3.3 billion shall be approved for grants only for Israel, provided that funds appropriated by this act under the heading Foreign Military Financing Program and made available for assistance for Israel shall be disbursed within 30 days of the date of the exactment of this act. So there you go. $3.3 billion for Israel. They make sure they get and another $500 million for Israel in a different procurement defense-wide act that also gives them special access. For everybody who's worried about these kind of things, I'm not an anti or a pro-Israel guy. I'm not real crazy about throwing our money their way. That seems just like a not a priority for America First people. It's not a bacon cheeseburger nationalist position. Tom Massie says it as well. $1.5 billion for Egypt. So there you go. We're also giving money on the other side of the Suez, he says. And Jordan also gets $2.1 billion. So that's useful. What is your value? Who knows? Just keep working, keep paying your paycheck, make sure that your W-2 deductions are correct, make sure that you haven't fudged on your taxes because we need to give money to foreign nations. $700 million for foreign AIDS and HIV treatments. The amounts made available for the Global HIV/AIDS program shall remain available through September 30th, 2027. The amounts made available through the Global Public Health Protection shall remain available through September 30th of 2028. So next year and the year after that, the funds may be used to purchase and the insurance of motor vehicles in foreign countries. No idea. I have no idea what motor vehicle purchase and insurance for official motor vehicles. It goes on. So what else was there? How about amendments to fix some of the stupid stuff? And he offered some amendments. And his amendments they were all turned down. Every single one of them. They wanted to, let's see if we can get some of these amendments here. This one failed to go on. They tried to get rid of the kill switch that the federal government has authorized and required manufacturers to put in cars so the federal government or a local government can decide whether or not your social credit score is good enough and they can drop it off. We covered this kind of extensively at the time. Yeah. Let's make sure that we have more of a police state. I thought we were getting in people who actually helped make a movie called Police State. I only say that because I was there and it was hosted at Mar-a-Lago when we did the premiere of it. Go figure. Amendment. What is this amendment? This is an amendment that Massie put in to get rid of daycare fraud. He wanted to try to freeze funding on this because no one knows why the federal government is involved in daycare. I don't either. How about the amendment to stop the warrantless surveillance of Americans through loopholes in FISA and FISA 702? So that seems useful to us. Do you guys see what a rhino this guy is? He's not going along with the agenda. These are all like these are the screenshots of the amendments he put out there. Is this what grandstanding looks like? I mean, fine. I'll take more of it. Honest to God. He wanted to end the propagandization. That's a terrible word. Propagandization of American citizens by the State Department and the United States Agency for Global Media, which is the sort of voice of America. By the way, that thing's full of spies and people who are speaking in a foreign tongue because they are from a foreign nation and then they are delivering American type propaganda, through intelligence agency talking points. That's really bizarre. So he wanted to end that. That seems reasonable. What else? He wanted to put an amendment in there to stop the creation of a central bank digital currency, CBDC, because it would be used for financial surveillance and control of your wallet. So that's also clearly a Democrat priority. And then most importantly, he wanted to include the SAVE Act to protect elections from illegal aliens, which should be a top priority for conservatives and is something that all the conservatives are talking about. And nobody wanted to get that thing through, even though they had the ability to maybe push it, because it would probably cause them to have a very difficult. If we're going to do omnibuses where everything is all thrown in there in the kitchen sink, wouldn't it be nice if we just put all the things in there that people actually cared about? So they actually tried to include this. This is Massie's attempt. And away it goes. And of course, the memes always pop in. This is one of my favorites. Why do you vote no on every bill? Oh, because he reads the bills, and I'm not confident that people do in the other sides of either party. I'm just not, because I've heard them talk. I'm not confident they can read some of this complex legal language because I'm not confident they can even speak intelligently enough about anything. So we're going to talk about the SAVE Act in just a second, which is now a topic. They could have got it through, or they could have tried to get it through and at least made it a priority. So you got that going. All right, before we get into those things, because I've got some very uncomfortable videos to watch, including listening to dumb women talk. And I always see things in terms of previous things I've always seen. There's nothing new under the sun. It's just a matter of like whose mouth it comes out of. We'll do that in one sec. If you guys are watching, make sure you give us a thumbs up on Rumble. We're always on the leaderboard. We were on the leaderboard again. We're in the top 50 videos, even though we are much smaller than many of the channels that are out there. Some of them have hundreds of thousands. Some of them have millions of subscribers, and we're still among their ranks. It's because you guys hit the like over on Rumble, so please do that if you're watching. Don't delay. There's nothing that stops you from it. If you guys can't because you're watching on TV, I do understand. Same thing over on YouTube. We appreciate that. That boosts us in the algorithm. It feeds it to more people. We're still not going to get fed to a ton of people, but you guys can help us boost us by subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, why not? Go for it. You don't have to watch every program, although I like it if you do. But you can also do that. If you guys want to get away from the ads, because a lot of people complain about the YouTube ads, yeah, you could just watch it live. It's at 09:30 Eastern time. Feel free to join us in the live chat. That's always going on, and it's fun. And if not, you can catch us on Spotify, and you may hear a Spotify ad right now. KyleSeraphinShow.com is how you get there. KyleSeraphinShow.com. Quite easy. Make sure you guys are checking those things out if you're so inclined, and I appreciate if you are. Should we do some fun video? We haven't had any video yet. I guess we did. We had Mike Johnson. I did these because I wanted the reflection. Okay. Anna Paulina Luna is really conservative about the SAVE Act. So, guys, we'll go over the SAVE Act, and I want to hear what the other side of the aisle says about the SAVE Act, mostly because I want to know what people who I am inclined not to agree with are trying to pitch to their voting base and the people that agree with them. What are they saying about the SAVE Act? So we're going to do this. Look at this. We're going to go over the Center for American Progress, found at americanprogress.org's SAVE Act Overview and Facts. So let's hear what the other side says, because that seems really useful. But before we do that, let's hear why it's important from someone who I think is too dumb to be in Congress. Some of you have her as your representative. Congratulations, APL, aka Anna Paulina Luna, who definitely was not a stripper. She was just a waitress at a strip club. So she was a cocktail waitress around women who were actually strippers, but she wasn't. So we just want to make that real clear. And you can tell she's, clearly congressional material.
Well, I can tell you that the Senate does have a different rules of the House, but from what I've gathered and
the Senate does have a different rules of the House.
Being able to really research on the talking filibuster in the last 24 hours, of which
She just found out they had a filibuster in the Senate, and she just found out what the rules were in the last 24 hours.
I was made aware of it literally just yesterday at the White House and among a few senators, is that Senator Thune is actually, and he has stated publicly today that he's going to be talking with his conference about the talking filibuster. And also too important to note that he is saying that this might take away other debate time from other important issues. But I actually would say to Senator Thune, who I do believe is going to do the right thing and will embrace this, especially after the president came out literally just today in the Oval Office.
We've heard the word literally about 9 times. That's a bugaboo of Steve Friend. Let's start from the beginning, and I'm just going to give it a running start, and then we're going to find out if there's the same energy in something that we all can remember from previous times.
And said that he wants the Save America Act passed with voter ID. That is 100% something that he's advocating for. But again,
But he also is advocating against Tom Massie, who wanted to make it an amendment and get it into the omnibus bill they just got. Okay, I'm tracking. I think we're all on the same page. Let's do this real quick from the beginning.
I can tell you that the Senate does have a different rules of the House, but from what I've gathered and been able to really research on the talking filibuster in the last 24 hours, of which I was made aware of it literally just yesterday at the White House and among a few senators, is that Senator Thune is actually, and he has stated publicly today that he's going to be talking with his conference about the talking filibuster. And also too important to note that he is saying that this might take away other debate time from other important issues.
Got it. Okay. I think we have the energy of the meaning that you are trying to convey to us. So thank you for that. Let's do another clip with the same energy. Can we match it?
Okay. Recent polls have shown a fifth of Americans can't locate the U.S. on a world map.
Oh, no.
Why do you think this is?
I personally believe that U.S. Americans are unable to do so because some people out there in our nation don't have maps, and I believe that our education, like such as in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere like such as, and I believe that they should, our education over here in the U.S. should help the U.S. Or should help South Africa and should help the Iraq and the Asian countries, so we will be able to build up our future for our children.
Thank you very much, South Carolina.
As long as you end with "for our children," you're good to go. And I don't know what she said, but both of those women were very pretty. And so I just like to see pretty ladies say words. I don't listen to the things that come out of their mouth. I just watch their mouth move and I just go, that's a pretty mouth and that's a pretty face. And isn't it nice? That's who I want to vote for. I would like a pretty person to represent me, please. Or we could have serious people who represent us in serious ways. We're not that country. We don't probably deserve that sort of thing. Maybe we could have a man who's not nearly as pretty looking as a young lady who worked in a strip club, but definitely wasn't a stripper. We could have, like, I don't know, engineers who graduated from prestigious universities back when they were still prestigious and has a bunch of patents and designed a bunch of things and built an off-grid house and, you know, has principles. The thing I really hate is politicians with principles. Get rid of all that, please. Can you find people that are willing to just do a job because times are tough and they need money? I don't know anything about times being tough and needing money. I absolutely have no idea what that would be like. I've never lost my job and not been paid for 14 months despite moving across the country to a place where I had no base of support. I've never had to like sell my home and move into an RV or go move into parents' houses at 40 something years old with a family full of little kids. I've never done that because I don't even know what having principles would be like. But I think if I did know what that would be like, it would be like a guy that says, I believe in the Constitution. I don't give a rat's ass about your stupid, local, non-enforceable, unconstitutional laws that shouldn't exist in the first place. We could have someone like that. Not nearly as pretty as such as the Iraq girl, though.
It was Aiden at GOA who introduced me to the individual who's the first person to train people in Washington, D.C. on getting their concealed carry permits. It's only recently that you could have a permit. I may have been carrying well before I got my permit, let's just say. One of my sons said back in that period of time when you weren't allowed to carry and I was carrying, he said, Dad, what's the punishment in Washington, D.C. if you get caught carrying a gun without a permit? I said, son, if you're a congressman from Kentucky and you get caught doing that, the punishment is perpetual re-election.
You bring a gun into the district, you mark my words, you're going to jail. I don't care if you have a license in another district, and I don't care if you're a law-abiding gun owner somewhere else. You bring a gun into this district, count on going to jail, and hope you get the gun back.
Yeah, MAGA, baby. Make America great again. Make sure we disarm people who may have a permit in another district or another region and they are following laws and they are not problematic and they didn't commit a gun crime. But if you carry a gun in Washington, D.C., ha, we'll get you. So says Fox News host Judge Jeanine, also known as the current United States Attorney for the District of Columbia. That's a place where I've arrested people who had felony convictions going back since before I was born. You know what they do with them? They actually just throw them out. You go, hey, man, we're here for PCP. We're looking for the actual drug. We're looking for paraphernalia and manufacturing stuff. You don't have a gun on you, do you? And he's like, oh, yeah, I got like these guns. And you're like, hey, man, aren't you a felon? He's like, yeah, I'm a felon. I mean, but like the guns are mine and they're in my bed next to my 5-year-old son who's sleeping next to me. And we're like, cool, I'm pretty sure that's a violation of federal law. You're not supposed to have guns while you're involved in other criminal activity like creating PCP and distributing it. By the way, we left the marijuana there on the search warrant, so we didn't even worry about the soft drugs. We went straight for the hard stuff because people apparently still do angel dust. I found that out in 2016 in a very weird way. And then they cut him loose. They just let him go. This was my first arrest that I ever did in the FBI. We arrested a guy because he had guns. And he was making PCP in his basement where he also lived. And it was a filthy, disgusting place. And luckily, Judge Jeanine is letting you know that she's going to be extra hard on these things. Now, the craziest part of all this is that she had to go do a hostage video because she said those things and people didn't like it. So she said, hey, gun owners. She's not a RINO, by the way. She's a real Republican, which means she does whatever the anti-gun administration wants to do. And when you have to say that the Donald Trump administration is the most pro-gun administration in American history, that tells you that our government is garbage. Because there's no degree of what is said in the Second Amendment. I read it. I'm just saying, I know what things have broken our constitutional system. One of them is that we accept the tolerance. The fact that I have to say things like, I'm a Second Amendment absolutist. I actually think that everybody should be able to own a gun. And I'm open to the idea that what my buddy said is that they should have them in prison. They should be able to be armed. They'd be awfully polite, wouldn't they? Or they would be all dead. We could have like the movie where it's called No Way Out, I think. Isn't that what it was called? No Escape? Ray Liotta? They put him on a freaking island and just like they shoot it out. And I don't care. That's more reasonable to me than the position that Jeanine Pirro holds. But she said, hold on. I have credentials. I am a proud Second Amendment supporter. Not follower, by the way. She just supports it. She doesn't follow it. Those are real specific words. And she's a high-heeled gun owner. I don't know what that is, but I don't want any of that. If you're a caveat of some kind of thing of a gun owner, please get away. My wife is a flats gun owner, and I pretty much guarantee you that she owns more guns than most of even you. She doesn't even know what guns are hers because I've just given her guns for Valentine's Day. Here's Judge Jeanine in this totally MAGA moment, letting you know that she used to host an entire convention at the Fudlore slinging, guns are for hunting, ban the bump stocks, and we don't actually believe in the real Second Amendment NRA conventions. So there she is. Here we go.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here in the office, and some people are concerned about something I said yesterday, so I want to be crystal clear. I am a proud supporter of the Second Amendment. I have guns myself, long guns, handguns, and I'm a proud high-heeled gun owner. In fact, I even keynoted an NRA convention. However, you need to be responsible, and every responsible gun owner that I know makes sure that they understand the laws, where they are going, and understand whatever registration requirements there might be. President Trump's goal here, and my goal as well, is to make sure we take guns out of the hands of criminals. There is a reason that we have the lowest homicide rate in recorded history. We're taking guns off the street, illegal guns, in the hands of criminals who want to use those guns to victimize law-abiding citizens. There's a big difference here. You're responsible, you follow the laws, you're not going to have a problem with me.
You follow the laws, you ask permission, you go ahead and play nicely, and you do what your government tells you to do, and you're not going to have a problem with me. Oh, that doesn't sound fascistic at all. That doesn't sound like you have a problem understanding what the Constitution says, or that you didn't read Bruin, or that you didn't read Heller, or that you don't realize that guns in common use should be something that... What are we talking about here? The position is that there's such a thing as an illegal gun? I mean, she works for Pam Bondi, so what do you expect? Pam Bondi, who was into red flags, which is an end around that just sort of subjugates the concept of due process. Amazing. Cool. You know how to get me on your not good side? Tell me that you think that you should be able to do things that you also ran on not doing. Did he not run? Did Donald Trump not run on a nationalized concealed carry program and reciprocity? Listen, all Judge Jeanine is saying is go out there and ask your government for the proper permission, jump through the hoops, pay the dollars, because the default position is you're not responsible enough to own a gun unless you prove that you can exercise the right that, oh yeah, the government is forbidden from infringing on. How about shut the F up, boomer? She's 74 years old. She's from what? New York? That's not America. And I don't give a shit what you have to say about this. It nauseates me. But let's primary Tom Massie, please. Can we get rid of Tom Massie, a man who has the same beliefs that I do, which says that there are 50 states in America that you can carry concealed if you're not a bitch? You just put the gun in your freaking waistband, you put it in the holster, you cover it up and conceal like a grown-up, and then you carry it in case you need it. And then the worst thing that happens is you did it in a place where you shouldn't have been there. I carried guns in California before I was allowed to, before I was a federal agent, and then after I was a federal agent. Do you know why? Because I don't care. I don't recognize your freaking unconstitutional laws. I'm asking you real quickly, Americans, people who are part of the Trump administration, what kind of American are you? Why do we keep taking these freaking commie boomers and putting them into positions where they get to tell you something? And so I made a video about it with some really cool American music.
I am a proud supporter of the Second Amendment. I have guns myself, long guns, handguns, and I'm a proud high-heeled gun owner. In fact, I even keynoted an NRA convention. However, you need to be responsible, and every responsible gun owner that I know makes sure that they understand the laws, where they are going, and understand whatever registration requirements there might be.
Okay. What kind of American are you?
I'm just saying that some of us are not the same. And I'm totally comfortable with the concept of being a rhino if being a real Republican means that you support the government infringing upon your ability to carry a firearm. I actually mean that really, really aggressively. I could not care less. Tulsi Gabbard probably agrees with me now. Look at her creeping out from behind whatever that thing was. I don't know why I left that picture up, but I still like it. Okay, and if you guys didn't see that video, you should see the video only because there's some visuals in there. I made memes. I'm not a meme guy. I never have been, but like I couldn't help but think, what kind of American are you, Judge Janine? So there are plenty of people that are deluding themselves into believing things about themselves that are not true. And this is the story from NBC that I wanted to cover with you. And we're going to get through a whole bunch of other stuff, kind of rapid fire now. All right. By the way, I shared that video and I made a version of it for GOA, the Gun Owners of America, which is what Tom Massie was speaking in front of some folks from GOA. And I met them when I was out at SHOT Show. I also did it for the National Association of Gun Rights, who said it was the best thing they've ever seen. And I said, I know. And then they called me Han Solo, which is funny. So I had that conversation yesterday and I shared it with Firearms Policy Coalition. Because the idea is that there can be no infringement. I don't care what brand of not NRA you support. I just don't support what the NRA is about because they're totally fine with the concept of banning certain things as long as they get to like keep hunting rifles or whatever. They call it FUD. If you guys don't know this, the idea of FUD is Elmer Fudd, who carries a double barrel shotgun. It's the Joe Biden go out and fire 2 blasts in the air. It's an antiquated idea. And also, I get nothing worse vibes than someone saying, I also am a gun owner, and therefore, as a gun owner, that's Tim Walz, that's Joe Biden, that's boomer freaking Janine Shapiro telling you, I also own guns and wear high heels. Just shut the F up. I'm disgusted by that. I'm legitimately disgusted. I get nauseated by these people. AI altered photographs and videos of Minneapolis shooting blur reality. This is an ongoing problem. If you guys are looking at this video, what you see, the video is me. I'm sorry. The photograph on the screen here, fake image that comes from NBC. It's an AI enhanced image depicting a man resembling Alex Priddy, the man who was shot by ICE, with his cell phone, but it's not actually the picture. First of all, the man is more handsome than the guy is in reality. His jawline is better. His glasses look more cool and stylish. And the police officer has something that says police in stencil, and then it says our lid on the back. HAURLID. That might be a U, but it looks like our lid. And that's one of those things that happens when you go enhance. Have you guys ever done that when you're like looking at documents? I do that now sometimes. I'm talking to somebody and they show me a document and I want to zoom in on it with my fingers. I want to open it up. When you want to enhance some of these things that cannot be enhanced, then it's bringing in fake information. And so social medias are trying to use AI to get clearer images and video. They are trying to get it cleaned up. But the problem is it ends up very misleading. There are 2 ways that you mislead people. You deceive their eyes by showing them something that is not real. And then the second thing is by telling them something in their ears and it presents something that's also not real. So we're going to do that a little bit. I just wanted to kind of touch on this quick story because I think it's fascinating. Let me show you another quick video that was going around a lot, or a picture. This is a fake image that was generated by AI. It's gone out in some really, really heavy formats. And what you'll find here, I'm going to show you on the screen here. So this is a man that's apparently Alex Priddy, but it's not. There's an ICE officer with a gun to his head, which didn't happen. There's some sort of like submachine gun situation going on here from like a German World War II, I don't know, like a Sten gun or something. What's crazy is you can always tell they're fake because up here you'll notice that the beanie the guy has a big hole in the front of it. And this agent down here is missing a head. There's no head. Look at that. Where's the head? He's got no hand either. His hand is apparently helping stabilize this gun. There's this like illogical kit, which is not real. So AI creates this sloppy stuff trying to clean things up. And what it does is it ends up being a lie. And that takes me to the story that Steve Friend has pointed out. And this one's really good because this is something that he was pointing out to me. This is the way that your government lies to you. They'll lie to you by stuffing a bunch of stuff in a bill. They'll lie to you with some sort of like hype video that's not realistic. And they'll lie to you by taking credit for things they didn't actually do. And so the backstory on this is that Steve sent this over to our little chat group where the suspendables sit and discuss the problems of the world and try to solve them the way you guys might do over dinner or beers. And he was like, what's going on with this claim? Florida man sentenced to 327 months for sex trafficking 2 women in Daytona. Sex trafficking is a violent crime and not a business. This defendant deliberately used force and coercion to control and exploit vulnerable women to line his own pockets. Crimes like this are not victimless. They cause lasting trauma and undermine the safety of our communities. You know, Not like Epstein stuff, like real trafficking of women to actual people. And the FBI is not going to take a back seat on this. They're going to get after it. And so you go, oh, okay, well, that seems like a good idea. There's only one problem with this. This story overlaps the time that Steve Friend was actually working sex trafficking crimes in Daytona Beach. So he would have known about this case. And he was like, oh, why do I not know about this case? And I'm sure he'll cover this on his American Radicals podcast soon. Steve Friend posted this. A 27-year sentence will be served concurrent with 2 state prison sentences that Smith, this is the guy who did it, is already serving. The FBI is spiking the football for convicting a man who was already serving prison time on a longer sentence for manslaughter because the FBI just does mop-up work and claims statistics. And this is something I've been trying to point out to you guys for quite a while. And I think we've done a pretty decent job of it. It turns out the Bureau sells slop. Our biggest federal law enforcement agency sells you nonsense. They will give you words that sound good, but in reality, they're basically doing this, but they'll do it with numbers.
Okay. Recent polls have shown a fifth of Americans can't locate the U.S. on a world map. Why do you think this is?
Well, you know, I can tell you that the Senate does have a different rules of the House, but from what I've gathered and been able to really research on the talking filibuster in the last 24 hours, of which I was made aware of it literally just yesterday at the White House and among a few senators, is that Senator Thune is actually, and he has stated publicly today that he's going to be talking with his conference about the talking filibuster and also to...
Zero information delivered. Lots of words. And a name. If you can do a name drop, say a bunch of words and get to nothing, then you're winning. That is essentially the victory in our modern system right now. Can you just say nothing, but filibuster for as long as possible? Let's talk about whether or not we're going to see anything else from these Epstein files. Again, I'm pivoting over here. There was an interview last night, and this is a piece of that.
The Epstein files, the last tranche, we're told, put out. Looking back since the beginning, and you've been a part of talking about this, and DOJ has obviously produced these elements. Do you have regrets about how it's been handled?
Look, like any other hot topic issue, the American public and the world had a great interest in this. And what we did under President Trump's leadership is produce the most transparent DOJ and FBI in history. 3 other administrations had the opportunity to do this, and we produced everything we legally and lawfully could. We worked with our partners in Congress, we followed the statutes and the court orders, and we produced, 3 million some pages. So I think we got to the result in the right way. Could we have gotten there faster? I'm not really sure because of numerous court cases, multiple protective orders, multiple court sealings. And so now we've produced everything we can while protecting victims' rights and following.
We got knob slobbery on Donald Trump. Because of Donald Trump's leadership, we were able to do the most transparent thing. Transparency are just things we like. So yeah, we killed it. We did a great job, and we gave you so many papers. All right, bro. All right. So you did a great job. We're super excited about the fact that you did it. And have you changed your opinion about anything now that you've had a chance to read some of the other things out there, including some evidence that looks like, even just, I'm not talking about the wild end talk phone calls that are, spontaneous and anonymous allegations. I mean, what about the actual emails between people who you actually know who they were, and they said things like that little girl was really naughty, and so thanks for sending her there, or they were Russian girls that were involved, and maybe Bill Gates got an STD out of it, and things like this, which his ex-wife is now reacting to. What about all that stuff? Have you changed anything?
You told me when we last talked, this is 8 months ago when we did an interview at the FBI in Quantico, that you were convinced that Epstein killed himself in jail. Today, 8 months after that, are you still convinced?
Yes.
100%?
Yes, sir.
All right, so Epstein killed himself. That hasn't changed. Nobody thinks otherwise. I remember that interview. Look at these 2 people on the screen. That's Bill and Hillary. Should we talk about them for a second, real quickly? Because they apparently, quote unquote, caved. We'll talk about it just briefly. Before we do, I'm just going to remind you guys, if you're watching, give me a like. I would appreciate that. Do it on Rumble. Do it on YouTube. Do it on X. I don't know why you do it on X, but do it on X. There's some people that watch it on X. If you're watching on X and you haven't gone over, because people have told me, I can't rewind and do, things that I want to do and manipulate the video and watch it faster, if I start late or whatever. come over to YouTube. That's the easiest place to do it. One, it's better monetized for me, so I appreciate that. Two, I just think the user interface is stronger. Rumble constantly, I get people griping and bitching about their ability to watch things on Rumble. Literally every day, I either catch comments or I catch remarks over on X. Tried to do this. This was my problem. I can't fix them. I have nothing to do with the back end of what goes on what you guys on the chat often call crumble. It just is what it is. We have the biggest audience there. That's where my biggest audience is, but you guys are slowly growing somewhere else. So feel free to join us. And then lastly, if you're always watching the replay, the best place to do it is Spotify because you can control everything. You get AI chapter headings, you get a transcript and all those things. KyleSeraphinShow.com. Leave a comment there. I will most likely be able to see it. Let's do the Bill and Hillary thing real quick. Why? Because I love Bill and Hillary. They are my favorite. There they are. Okay, look at this handsome couple. Can we just point out a couple things? Number one, Hillary is in white. Bill Clinton is in black. I'm sure they didn't coordinate that. Hillary is walking and Bill is either holding on to her arm for support because he's ancient, which is possible, or because he's subservient to her, which is equally possible. I don't know what the answer is, but it's really gross. I walk with my wife regularly. I never once loop my arm. Here, I got to do the scream. I never loop my arm inside my wife's arm. I walk. My hands are free. I may need to draw a gun. I'm like Tom Massie. I'm carrying everywhere. And she carries, like she puts a hand on either my bicep or on my forearm and she holds on to me and she kind of loops her arm in there. You know, like men and women have walked for centuries, as far as I can tell. So it's interesting to me that Republicans push this and now we're going to finally get the story. They are going to be forced to testify. They caved and they caved to testify at a place where there's basically going to be no reaction. Any statute of limitations, as far as I can tell, is gone. So no to whatever prosecutions. Do you remember the time when I heard that there was going to be like a lock her up thing? Yeah, they didn't do that. Remember we were going to get all kinds of things. We were going to get transparency on like, why did someone try to kill Donald Trump at Butler, PA? And like, how come these people were doing shady stuff down in Haiti? And like, what did they do with all the money that they brought in? None of that stuff's going to be handled. That's just like, we're just going to come and talk about it. We're going to make it up. But interestingly enough, since they have now formally requested and they were going to put them in contempt of Congress, they were ready to vote on it. And so these people decided, oh, we're going to cave. It did give Democrats an opportunity to play back at them because KFAB is good on both sides. Democrats say that Republicans set a precedent with subpoenas of the ex-president and the first lady. Quote, we will follow it. Donald Trump, all of his children, everybody, said Representative Maxwell Frost, who's kind of like a young communist guy. And so that's pretty cool to see. You're going to now get exactly what we said. If you don't de-weaponize government, which they don't seem to have any interest in doing, then you're going to get what's good for the goose is good for the gander and worse because Democrats don't miss and Republicans play cutesy time and they do footsie and they don't get rid of anybody. They don't exile and they don't execute. They just sort of maintain the status quo and vote for all the money, throw it to Israel, throw it to the same thing they were just bitching about a second ago, child daycares in Minnesota, all the things that were fraudulent, they're all going to get voted in. All the foreign aid that you thought was going to be America first means we're going to take care of America first. Nah. That's not dooming. I'm just reading the words. I just read where they put our money, your money. They took it out of your paycheck without your permission. You don't have a choice. And then they went and did what with it? Sent it out the door to somebody else. Why? Democrats now say that Republicans have established a precedent as though they couldn't do things bad on their own. This is coming from NBC News as well. When it comes to Congress's ability to subpoena and haul in past presidents. Well, you know, I do realize that I'm older than 5 minutes old. And so I remember when they actually, forget the subpoena, they kicked down the door and did a raid at Mar-a-Lago. Remember? They sent armed agents in. Go back and check the tape, September 2022. I said one of the proudest things that I can point to in my time of service in the federal government is that I was removed and thought that I was unworthy of working for the FBI at the time before they decided to break that glass window. So my conscience is clean on this stuff. I also had somebody ask me, like, Kyle, when have you ever enforced an unconstitutional gun law? And I'm like, as far as I know, my first day on the job, I arrested that PCP guy and he was let go. And that was the closest I got to doing it. And he was actually carrying a gun in commission of another crime. So maybe you got me. Maybe I'm a little bit of a hypocrite on that. I'm open to it. I'm not sure that my position had evolved to the point of like complete absolutism where I thought felons should be able to carry guns. But I definitely got there by working in the federal government. So maybe you got me on that. But my conscience is very clear on the Mar-a-Lago thing. We're absolutely going to have Donald Trump testify under oath when Democrats get back in power, says Ted Lieu, another guy coming out of California. We're going to find out what his ties were to Jeffrey Epstein. It's a big deal, said Steny Hoyer of Maryland. I love it. Steny Hoyer, who's been in office for 45 years. He's been in office for a year longer than I've been on the planet. Incredible. Thanks, boomers. Love it. He's going to finally retire. But somebody is still going to come after and get transparency from Donald Trump, who's going to be in his 80s. It'll be interesting to see what former President Donald Trump thinks of that premise when we decide to start talking about it. Rah, 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 rah. This all feels like WWE to me. It does. It just feels fake. What about some of the other weird stuff? Like, didn't we have some other kind of uncomfortable theater that's been played out? If we could just get this back to January, could we get back to January 6th, please, and talk about that a little bit? All right, fine. Let's go back and do a Brett Baer interview talking about January 6th, the truth that we all got. Look, all this stuff is about truth, right? It's all about transparency. It's about accuracy. We all want to get the real information so we can make the best decisions and we can elect the best not stripper who worked as a cocktail waitress. Like, we want to get the best people, not people who have principles or whatever, but like the prettiest, like nicest looking former Miss South Carolina types. Like, we just want the best to represent us. So we need all the transparency.
Okay. Recent polls have shown a fifth of Americans can't locate the U.S. on a world map. Why do you think this is?
I'm going to tell you why this is relevant.
I personally believe that U.S. Americans are unable to do so because some people out there in our nation don't have maps, and I believe that our education, like such as in South Africa and...
So listen, I believe that our education, such as in the South Africa and also in the Iraq, where they don't have maps, one of the things that I found about our education is that nobody is teaching anyone how to remember anything more than 15 seconds. Congress pretends like all of you have the memory of a goldfish. And many of you do. I don't know if you're listening to this program, but many Americans have the memory of a goldfish. And when you bring things up, they're like, oh, I get it. I freaking remember that. And you're like, yeah, you remember that? Do you remember how crazy it is that like that happened? And then you just acted like it didn't happen. And they're like, yeah. Do you remember how every single person that you knew in your entire life was asking you about your vaccine status like 15 seconds ago? And they shut down your entire existence. They stopped bringing grandkids to see you, or maybe they didn't come see your children as grandparents. Do you remember those people? That was all of them. Do you remember when the federal government said that you cannot work if you have a company that employs more than 100 people without getting the shot? And we're going to come shut you down because OSHA? Do you remember that? I remember that. That was crazy. Do you remember that a bunch of people were fed up with that crap and they were like, hey, you can't shut down the economy. You can't tell me that my life is non-essential. You can't tell me that my business and my work is not important. You can't tell me that whatever I've dedicated all of my financial resources to is now just outlawed because of some fiat bullshit that has nothing to do with any of the authorities that you're allowed to have. You can't tell me whether or not I can carry a gun, and you sure as hell can't tell me whether or not I can open my freaking restaurant to paying customers who want to be in my restaurant and are willing to accept whatever that risk looks like. And you're going to do it in the name of public health or some sort of emergency that you just made up. The Constitution was not for like whenever it was convenient. It's supposed to be the supreme law of the land. You remember that? They just completely act like you don't remember that. They really do. And I'm infuriated. That's the one thing that I get truly emotional about is what this nation stole from those of us that looked out and was like, hey guys, there's some bullshit being said right now. It is incredibly dangerous. I do not agree to it. And I'm going to act in a way that is going to get me canceled from my job. I did that. It might get you arrested. Some of you had that experience. And I'm also not willing to cede that territory and just let it go. COVID amnesty. Do you remember that being trending for a while? They changed the need for that. They don't need COVID amnesty. They got COVID amnesia. Just like January 6th amnesia. I'm seeing this back and forth right now where they're like, Ed Martin was so great. He ran the weaponization working group and he got removed by Todd Blanche. And Todd Blanche is a really bad guy. And he got rid of Ed Martin. Ed Martin is the eagle and he soared so high. And he said, how you doing, America, every morning. And he was so nice. And you wore a trench coat. It's like, yeah, well, he was the guy in charge of pardons. And how come Joe Biggs doesn't have a freaking pardon yet? Joe Biggs, who's been on this show twice. Once when he was in prison after he was sentenced to like some ungodly amount of time for walking around. And then since when he was pardoned Oh, wait, he wasn't pardoned. He just got commuted. So they let him out of prison and they said, I know that you have a Purple Heart and I know you serve this country and you should have a military retirement, but we're taking your benefits. And by the way, you're not going to be able to support your own kid. So your wife is going to take your kid and you won't see them again. Your daughter's gone. Stuart Rose, same story. Like either you're pardoned or you're not. Either you're safe to walk among us or you're not. Either you are a felon and you need to be in prison, or you are an American citizen and you should vote and be able to carry a gun. You know, like the basic principles. Or we could just like make felon in possession stuff. I don't know. I'm consistent. I'll continue to be consistent. You know what's consistent? One guy keeps lying to us. This guy continues to lie. We're going to go back in time to the Brett Baer interview because all of this stuff, if it doesn't come out, if we don't actually have the word transparency mean that you're going to transparently let us look through the window and see what kind of crap you're trying to sell us so we can see the machine behind, then the illusion will continue and people will just keep goldfishing, except those of us that are outraged. And then you'll just say, oh, you're outraged because you recognize that there's a pattern and it keeps repeating itself. And we keep stuffing money into bills that shouldn't be there. And we keep infringing on your rights, but we keep saying that we're actually not infringing on your rights. And because we said it, you're supposed to believe us, even though you can transparently see that we're lying to you. All this stuff is going to come back. Like, we don't need to go back to JFK. We don't need to go back to the 1940s. We don't need to go back to the New Deal. We can go back to a time that all of us that are of voting age, and basically the people that listen to this podcast, I've looked at the demographics, all of you were voting age 5 years ago. So how about we fix that problem?
But more importantly, people have had questions about January 6th and whether or not there were FBI sources, not agents, sources on the ground during January 6th. And I told you I would get you the definitive answer to that, and we have. And we are in the process, again, of working with our partners to divulge that information, and it is coming. And I will tell you this. The answer to that question will surprise and shock people because of what past FBI leaders have said about it.
Former FBI Director Chris Wray eventually admitted to Congress there were 26 FBI confidential human sources in around the Capitol January 6th, but not actual agents. Can you say that's true? Are there more than that? What you're learning from that?
I can say that that is definitely a piece of the truth. Why it took a ton of time for and questioning in Congress for the director to get that point is what I'm trying to eliminate from the FBI. If Congress asks you a question under oath, whether or not there were sources in around January 6th at the Capitol, you as the director of the FBI need to know that and not deflect and give a DC answer. You have to be prepared for that. And that's the answer we're giving. That's the answer Chris Wray should have given.
And eventually everybody's going to know the whole picture.
Yeah, because the American people deserve that. And look, no one's more frustrated than me. Remember, I was chief of staff of the Department of Defense on January 6th. We said that we were ready, and the president had previously authorized the National Guard to be there days in advance. I spent 2 years, a small fortune, grand juries, to testify to the truth. And what happens now, years later? We were right. Bowser and Pelosi rejected that offer. And instead of figuring out how to prevent security lapses like that ever again, the American public spent tens of millions of dollars and countless hours on TV listening to conspiracy theories because those in positions of leadership failed to tell the American public the truth.
Okay, well, you're in a position of leadership. Are you going to tell the American people the truth? Because I think that was like 9 months ago. So where's the answer to that thing? What happened on January 6th? Why don't we have that answer? Why did you say weird things? Why did you say stuff that had nothing to do with what we were trying to understand? Why did you deflect to some sort of story about your credentials and who you were as a person and all this other kind of nonsense? It's problematic that these people just act like you can't remember anything. I saw our chat ask, it was like, hey, is this a taped episode? Have I seen this one already? No, you haven't seen this, but we've seen this show over and over again. We keep watching the same show. We've been calling this out since it started. I was trying to figure out why people watch reruns last night. Because we had a trailer that came out for like a Law and Order or something like that. And I was like, why do people always want to watch a rerun of Law and Order? Because it feels comfortable, I guess. You want to be lied to in the same way? The problem is this is actually our new money being spent. It's not our old money being spent again. You know, like we're not rehashing how we spent our old money, like looking at pictures or videos of vacation. We are actively taking money out of your current paycheck that you could be doing something else with And we are sending it wherever the hell we're doing it, to Somali fraud in Minnesota, or we're funding major government jobs that don't exist or shouldn't exist, and we don't know why they're there. We got guys that are self-congratulating about the word transparency over and over again. Just say transparency, but don't actually do transparency. And then when you get forced to do it by somebody in Congress, by the way, that person is called Tom Massie, and Ro Khanna pushed that through, the Epstein Transparency Act, then you're like, yeah, we did a great job. Look how great a job we did because of the great job that we did that we didn't want to do, but we had to do. And then we got shamed in the social media space into doing. Gross.
There are.
The Epstein thing, you dealt with Maria, you said, as far as you know, he killed himself.
I'm telling you, he killed himself.
The other thing on the internet is the Epstein files. What's the answer to that?
The answer to that is the same as everything else. I'm not going to withhold information from the American public ever. But I'm also not going to rush to get it out there in a format in which they can't rely on it. So on the Epstein matter or any other matters, we are diligently working on that. And it takes time to go through years of investigations, years of political maneuvering, and years of cover-up to get the American people what they deserve. And that's what I'm going to give them on everything.
Yeah.
Did you guys know that the guy who tried to kill Donald Trump at the golf course is being sentenced today, and he faces like up to the rest of his life in prison for bringing a weapon and trying to take out the president? Do we ever get the story about what went on in Butler? Oh yeah, nothing. There was nothing there. It was just you imagine that. Transparency equals things we like, right? Pretty sure. We don't have to actually do transparency. That would be... Luckily, we have an American public that we believe act like goldfish. And as long as we can get them to cheer, and these are our guys, Tom Massie's bad. Jeanine Pirro. She's a high-heeled gun owner, guys. It reminds me of that, what is that movie where the woman, she's the like the lib white woman, she was like, how dare you accuse me of being racist? My husband and I supported Colin Powell. Somebody will remember what that movie was. I can't remember what it was. And that woman plays like the snooty white chick in she's like snooty white waspy lady in every single movie. I feel like that's what we're being played as. How dare you question my credibility? I spoke at an NRA convention. I'm Kash Patel. I support the MAGA agenda, and I slob the knob. And so, don't worry about what actually happens. Just, I'm on Bret Baier. I'm slinging boomer slop here. Just because boomers watch Fox News doesn't mean that you're the boomer that watches it. If you're a boomer person and you're like, hey, that doesn't represent me, I'm not attacking you. I'm just saying, you got friends who do that. I don't know why they like being lied to, but they do. Fox News treats you like you have the memory of a goldfish. They actually sometimes do a little bit of journalism on accident, and when they do, it's incredibly uncomfortable. And I imagine there's a phone call from the White House saying, hey, knock that shit off. Stop playing clips of when my people were saying dumb things before because it makes them look dumb, and we're not doing that here. And you won't have any more access to the White House. And Fox News goes, oh yeah, my bad. Sorry about that. So we don't do that. We're not beholden to anybody. I'm not beholden to anybody. I appreciate you guys being here, whether you agree with me or not. Throw it into the chat when you don't. Throw it into a comment. Tell me what you disagree with. Tell me why. Don't just be like, you're a jerk. I am sometimes a jerk. I understand that. My wife knew that when she married me. You guys probably know that from watching me. Sometimes I'm a jerk. Sometimes a jerk is right. Give me reasons. I'd love to hear them. I actually do. I appreciate people who disagree with me on principle. Tell me what the principles are that you think are not being carried out. Sometimes you're right. So I'll admit it when I am. Like us on Rumble. Like us on YouTube. I keep asking because sometimes we just do that. You guys may hear a Spotify ad right now that plays in. That's one of the ways we monetize this channel. Keeps us going. That way we don't take money from anybody else. So there it is. KyleSeraphinShow.com is how you get to the Spotify channel. You guys should check into that. Should we do the Ryan Roush thing? Because that's pretty weird. How come that kind of went away? It does seem like something we should be worried about. Oh, by the way, here's another quick story just that's out there, and I'm not going to cover it other than I sent it over to Steve Baker, my buddy. Apparently Harry Dunn, the enormously fat, like misbehaved police officer from Capitol Police, and I'm just saying, like, he's a huge guy. He weighs like 300 something pounds, like 350 pounds. Harry Dunn is going to run for Congress after failing last time. So apparently he doesn't know what else to do. He doesn't have any other possibilities. He doesn't work as a Capitol Police officer. He was exposed for being a fraud. He lied a bunch. All of the stuff that he testified is highly dubious and it should be perjurious. And that was pretty well proven by Steve Baker's exposés on him. And so, yeah, he's going to run for Steny Hoyer's seat, who we mentioned earlier. There's going to be, last time he couldn't make it through the primary. So that's kind of fun. Just interesting to note. The January 6 people, the heroes on the left, they're still going to continue to move forward. And they're still going to have, these exciting things happen for them in their lives. Let's see if we can get to the quick little story. There it is. It's an ABC story. Boop. Yeah, the attempted assassin. He's going to be sentenced today at some point. Somehow we just like moved on from that. Somehow we just left that behind and we just did not cover that any further. And that seems problematic because I'm pretty sure the question of like, what the hell went on in Butler and why don't we know more about these people and what's the status there? I mean, Kash was asked about it last night. They were asked about it originally on Maria Bartiromo back when Dan Bongino was still at the FBI. Let's do a little replay of that. I think this is the clip.
You know what, Maria? Kash is not kidding. We've been personally briefed extensively on every single detail, nugget, tendril of this case. One is actively in court right now, so out of respect for the case, it's probably more appropriate that I stay quiet on that. However, I'm not going to tell people what they want to hear. I'm going to tell you the truth, and whether you like it or not is up to you. If there was a big explosive there, right? Given my history as a Secret Service agent and my personal friendship as a director does with the president, give me one logical, sensible reason we would not have. If you can think of one, there isn't. In some of these cases, the there you're looking for is not there. And I know people, I get it. I understand. It's not there.
Let me say the word there as many times as possible. I've run out of ways to try to explain that I don't know the answer. Listen, they can find the answer really quickly. They can understand an alternative to what you said, which is that you don't know how to find the answer. You don't know how to read the files. You never learned how to get access to Sentinel. You have to rely on people that brief you that are interested in lying to you. And you walked into a scenario where you were utterly overwhelmed and you were utterly underqualified to handle the business you were asked to do. That's the answer. That's the most likely answer. You walked in and you got details and nuggets and tendrils, of which there are zero tendrils or nuggets, as far as I'm aware, in any FBI case. There are serials. There are evidentiary statements in the form of 302s. There are witness testimonies. There are subpoenaed, financial records. That's how you get stuff. That's what's out there. That's what's in a criminal case. The intelligence cases have things like FISA, so they have like what's called signal intelligence. They have captured emails, and they have various different what they call technical coverage, which is going to be computers and the NSA's signal int kind of stuff. No tendrils, no nuggets. So Kash was asked about that on Bret Baier, and has he decided to give us any more information? We were told that there was nothing there, and they're going to hold that line. Listen, the upside is if you do stay a lie, you might as well keep saying it until people believe it, I suppose.
Provide support.
All right, well, let me take you to a different shooter, and that is the Butler shooter. I asked you about this at Quantico. Take a listen. Will we know a lot more about him? Is there more to know?
I don't know that there's more to know, but you're going to know everything we know. And we don't feel that the American people have been given the information they need on that. And we're digging through the files and we're getting them a more robust picture of what happened.
So that was May 2025. I mean, I don't think we, the public, have a more robust picture of that shooter.
Well, I think that's an unfair supposition. We, the FBI, have put out all the information that we possibly and legally can while protecting any ongoing matters that are unrelated.
But he's dead.
Well, yes, he's very much dead. But at the same time, Brett, we at the FBI have to follow the parameters of our investigation and what the law allows us to release.
I get it, but what were the cell phones? Why don't we know who he was talking to? What exactly happened? I feel like we haven't gotten the whole picture about Butler even now.
But here's the thing, Brett. We can provide, and just an example here, we've provided 40,000 pages of documents to Congress. That's a 400% increase from the prior two directors. We will continue to provide this information with our partners on Capitol Hill when we are legally able. It's never going to be enough for everyone. It's never going to be enough. But what we are saying is, we're not saying trust us. We're saying we did an exhaustive search of that. We presented that information to the Department of Justice, and a decision was made on what to release.
Yeah, but...
Okay, look, we're not saying trust us. We're saying trust the DOJ, which also has people like Pam Bondi and Jeanine Pirro who don't seem to understand what the Constitution says. So don't trust us. Trust the people that you don't trust, because they've proven to you that they can't be trusted. And we've done accountability with the leadership of Donald Trump, the greatest president in the history of being a president, with leadership and trust. And so as the Iraq, such as in South Africa, what we want to know is, can Americans have maps? And 400,000 documents have been released. Do you understand how important it is that you trust us now because of all these things that we just said? Like, why is 400,000 documents means nothing? There's probably 400,000 documents in my house. I have no idea what you would learn from them, but probably not enough to be able to be like, oh, well, that's an accurate picture of Kyle Seraphin's life now. I understand what he's all about. It's just random crap. By the way, I think they even just like say that the pages are the document. So it's like 400,000 pages of junk. And what does that even mean? You're just saying numbers. We convicted a guy and got 327 months of prison incarceration, even though he's already going to be in jail for life for manslaughter. But like, also, we did a great job. Awesome. Okay. So something broke over the last couple days, whatever it was, 2 days or so. And James O'Keefe did what James O'Keefe does, which is lack a targeting officer. For those of you that know what a targeting officer is, I'll just do a quick refresher for those who don't. It's real simple. It's a person that tells you this is where you should focus your efforts on, fill in the blank type of thing. You want to achieve a certain type of intelligence. This is the kind of person that would have that intelligence. Or you could do what this guy does. What he does is he hires super pretty women and they're knockout beautiful. And then they go find like mediocre dudes who work in low-level government jobs that are going on dates and on dating apps. And then those guys sit and try to impress super impressive pretty girl who seems unnaturally interested in what they have to say. And then they get caught on hidden cameras saying dumb shit that they are basically just guessing about on a regular basis. Or dudes on dudes. They do some Grindr journalism. They do some Tinder journalism. So here's a man who has an incredibly low-level position. Like, I'll go into how detailed and how silly that is. A low-level position in the FBI as what's called a personal security specialist or a personnel security specialist. Then I'm going to give you an example that ties back to yesterday and the women in the nail room, because it's a promotion from the nail room to be a PSS, but not much. And you don't know much more. So here's a guy talking about Kash Patel being a diva. All this tells you is one thing. The culture inside the FBI has not changed. The people that work there do not take him seriously. And all of that was something you would learn from listening to me or just following the trends on social media, because nobody thinks that they're useful. Nobody thinks that that guy who just gave out that word salad answer is serious. And there's all the rumors that go on inside the FBI, just like every other government or agency or any other kind of company you've worked for. Oh, like the CEO likes to bang his secretary in the bathroom. That's why he has such a big bathroom. Like, there's all these little rumors and things. A lot of them are true. Especially in the case of Kash Patel. Like, he has a whiskey bar like being built with taxpayer funds. Why is that? Nobody knows. Oh, he had to have the entire airplane reupholstered because he said he wasn't going to sit in that because he wanted a new plane, but they didn't do that. So they got new upholstery for the entire thing at the cost of God knows what to us. That kind of stuff. When somebody learns that and they work in the space where they can learn it, then it goes around the little rumor mill and we have what's called rumor intelligence or rumint, which happens in every sort of federal agency. Anyway, here's a guy basically talking about what he's read in the news and what he feels the culture of the FBI indicates. He's not probably wrong. I don't think anyone's going to jail. I just showed you Bill and Hillary. You think they're going to jail? He's saying the same thing that everybody said, but this is not inside knowledge. And it's being presented as secret knowledge because we have unserious weirdos like James O'Keefe running around. I think he's in like Miami. I don't even know where this guy's office is, but if you're a personnel security specialist, you know the least number of things. They're not doing investigations. They're not involved in actual criminal process. They have no access to any of the like really serious stuff. They do background investigations and they hire people. The investigations they're doing are like on people that are not employees yet. And I've actually got a fun video of that. So anyhow, here's the James O'Keefe piece. I'm going to give you a tease of it.
He's like a diva. Is that true? 110% he's a diva. Are you serious? 110%. He's lazy as hell. He's not good at his job.
I've said that if arrests do not happen, if people are not held to account, then we'll have no choice but to investigate the investigators themselves.
I am a security specialist at the FBI, so I do background checks, investigations, that type of stuff. I've been working there for 5 years now.
On hidden camera, this FBI security specialist tells us the quiet part out loud.
So you don't think there's going to be any like major arrests, like with Kash Patel or the FBI?
No. Also, I don't think anybody would ever go to prison.
Now, thanks to the brave work of citizens.
Yeah, thanks to the brave work of some chick who went on a date with a guy who was like trying to impress her, who works as a very low level. This is the equivalent of saying like there is, imagine if you found somebody that was the unarmed security guard that read the emails that came over and decided who had the ability to enter the building or not at Trump Tower. And you were like, high level Donald Trump, Trump organization official now is going to give us all the info. It's like, he just is a guy that sits in the lobby and he runs the desk. I'm showing you the screen right here. This is the FBI career page, personnel security specialist and the recruiting process. And we have a video. from a woman whose name is not Yolanda, it's Yolanda. So all of the Tanyas and the Shondas and the Yolandas that work in the FBI, like they're all the same lady. I worked with all of them, and I'm not trying to be mean, but they all basically are way, way overpaid and underqualified for the work they do. And then like they get these like sort of glorification videos where they talk about how awesome they are. So we're going to put her on the screen, and I'm going to help you understand what this guy's job is, this high-level FBI official who never once thought of himself as being an FBI official, because there's hardly anything official about being a PSS. I love this music.
My name is Yolanda Willis, and I am a personnel security specialist. I have an opportunity to process applications for anyone who applies to enter into the FBI. We're kind of considered the gatekeepers.
What did she just say? We're kind of considered the gatekeepers. There's actually a fringe benefit to this video that I wanted to share with you as well. When you have a bunch of Yolandas that are still doing all the background investigations, and these are the people that are deciding who comes into the FBI and who doesn't, that's why guys like me took like 2 years to get in. That's why I have friends who took 4 years to get in, even though they're hyper qualified, had a military law enforcement background, etc., and were like decent investigators and people who understood what the Constitution meant. In other words, what I'm saying is most people who become special agents in the FBI have applied to and are waiting longer after they are given the hiring notice to actually start at the FBI than Dan Bongino spent in his entire time at the FBI. And how come there's a bunch of Yolandas still there? And Justin Devines.
Because before entering into the FBI as an employee, you actually have to prove yourself through suitability, through an investigation process. So our team works together. It is a very tedious and extensive process, but certainly it's important for us to go through so that everyone can make sure that our coworkers are not going to hurt or harm each other. But in addition to that, to make sure that those that are working with us are working to safeguard our country as well.
So you notice they're not going to hurt or harm us, the employees, but also like maybe the Constitution, but not really the Constitution. We don't want to say things like Constitution. When I started, the number one mission statement was that they were meant to be rigorously obedient to the Constitution of the United States of America. That was the number one. And sometime in 2020, between the dates of September 3rd and 7th of 2020, to be precise, they changed that mission statement under Chris Wray, and all the same still people, all the same people still work there. Ain't that something? All of the people that were the gatekeepers then, and all the people that promoted under that weird culture that pivoted just before January 6th, right in the middle of COVID, right in the middle of all these things that we're supposed to remember, they're all still there, and they're all still doing what they do. So you can't do reform with the same people, which is why all the guys that are coming out of this space and the guy that's still up there going on Brett Baer can't give you a straight answer about things because he doesn't freaking know, because he's got a bunch of Yolandas out there and people that Yolanda vetted. I'll say it again.
You're dealing with multiple cases, so you have to be very organized.
Guys, she investigates multiple people's background at once. Can you imagine if you were a personnel person and they give you like more than one file at a time? Okay. Your average FBI agent's working on like 8 to 12 cases, unless you're working like the high volume criminal stuff, then you're doing as many as 40 cases. This woman has more than one person that she is trying to get through the process at once. Do you know how many the ratio of like hirees to that lady it is? It's shockingly small. That's the other crazy part of it. But yeah, we totally solved this problem. This is still on the FBI's website, by the way. I pulled it this morning.
You have to be prepared to think outside of the box sometimes as well. What
does that mean? What box do we have when we start looking into the national security things? Do we look at whether or not somebody has loyalty and faithfulness to the Constitution of the United States of America, and whether or not they're willing to carry a gun in Washington, D.C., whether or not the local laws say so because they believe in the Second Amendment, or do you do that? No.
And with a story. We all have a history and a past, and we have some great things to offer this agency. That's another great thing really about the FBI, is that the sky's the limit. It's just up to the individual and exactly, what they want to do to discover the career path that they would like to seek for themselves.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible stuff. This is Justin Devine. This is the guy that was that was interviewed by the pretty lady from the OMB group. And so let me just tell you, Justin Devine thought of himself as being a future FBI agent, like so many, or maybe a future analyst. He joined to get his job experience. I'm just guessing because I've met a bunch of Justin Devines. They got a little bit of time in the FBI working in some job, entry level, and then they all aspire to promote to agent, because now that you've worked at the FBI for 3 years, you are now qualified with 3 years worth of work experience, and you can become an FBI agent. And guess who becomes them? People who work for the FBI. This is what captured culture looks like. Just so you guys know, that's the real story here. The story is not whether or not Kash Patel did something or whether he knows anything. Just kind of amazing stuff. Anyway, did anything change? Does the FBI get changed because you go there, or does the FBI change you? In very rare circumstances, people change the FBI. I think we did. Me and some of the guys with me. Basically, we shamed the hell out of them. Somebody asked me the other day, hey, what do you do? Like, you're just a jerk. I'm like, yeah, I am a jerk, but I have 40 scalps hanging off my belt, some of which are accidental, but we got them anyway. We had 40 different people pointed out in the current FBI, the so-called this FBI versus that FBI, that are still on the old agenda because the idiots that ran it had no idea. And they used to actually know that, and now they don't.
Listen, that Jeffrey Epstein story is a big deal. Please do not let that story go. Keep your eye on this. Catherine Rumler, we need to keep the heat on this case, folks. There are a lot of people who are knee deep in the Washington swamp who are not telling you the truth about serious allegations out there that Epstein may have had video and audio of people out there doing things they shouldn't have been doing. And you should be asking yourself the question, how is it that all these people, the CIA director, the Obama fixer, Bill Clinton, all intersected paths with Jeffrey Epstein? Jeffrey Epstein isn't with us anymore, and nobody seems to want to talk about it. Outside of a few entrepreneurial media outlets saying, hey, this is a big deal.
He killed himself. You want me to? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
And by see the whole file, he means that he was briefed on the whole file. Here's something that they're not telling you. The people that are out there trumping the Trump agenda and saying how great it's been. This is why it probably looks really great from those people. Have you noticed that the people that are telling you how great it is all have like an above average income? You know, like maybe they own like a couple $100 million worth of Rumble stock, or maybe they're like a super wealthy banker that also is in the cabinet and did the job because they wanted to get close to another guy who's a billionaire and wanted to be near all the money. The wealthy ramp up spending while other Americans tread water, new study finds. This is coming from ABC News. Yes. Do they want to do nice things for this administration? No, but this actually hits where most people can recognize it. Chris Rugaber, an AP economics writer, he said higher income Americans and those with college degrees have ramped up their spending more quickly in the last 3 years than lower income households and those without college degrees. You know, the people that Donald Trump said were sort of his people. And that's what you would expect. This goes to the age-old thing that inflation benefits the wealthy and it hurts the poor, broadly speaking. And if you are closer to the poor side than the wealthy side, and by the way, there's only very few people that are on that wealthy side, the inflation doesn't actually benefit you. Higher income Americans, those with college degrees, have ramped up their spending in the past 3 years, according to consumer data and a newly released data from Tuesday, earlier this week, yesterday. Evidence of a worsening inequality. I don't like the words inequality, but the gap is relevant. The data released by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York also shows that in the final 3 months of last year, lower income and rural households faced higher inflation than higher income households. The spending data focuses only on goods, excluding autos, and it doesn't likely capture spending by high income households on travel, restaurants, and entertainment, which is most likely to be cut off by people. It's one of the first things you cut off when you're starting to tighten your belt. The figure adds support to the notion of a quote unquote K-shaped economy, in which the upper income Americans are fueling a disproportionate share of the consumption that is the primary driver of the economy, making it look artificially better than it is, while lower income households see fewer gains, if not any, and sometimes they lose. The poorer households in general often experience higher inflation, with a greater share of their spending being set aside for goods that have seen prices soar since the pandemic. I would say that we are pretty firmly in the middle class in this house. And I don't balk at the difference between paying $5.50 and $6.39 for a pound of ground beef, but it is a noticeable difference, and I keep track of it. I'm still going to buy coffee when it's 40% more expensive because I like having coffee, but it means that it costs me other things. There's an opportunity cost to buying that. I've experienced higher costs. So have you. The Biden administration dropped that on us. No question about it. Their bad policies and bringing a bunch of people in and all the other crap that they did, shutting down oil, right? And the oil exploration in the United States and cutting down pipelines, all of that stuff, 100%. But nobody hit the brakes and then did a U-turn. What they did is they just sort of took their foot off the accelerator. And so we're down to like around 3%, 2%. The inflation still continues. Your money is still worth less. And they didn't reverse the trend. So all those high prices are still high prices. And all of you are still dealing with that. And we haven't gone backwards. So anyway, it's just interesting that the people that want to tell us everything is great, it's ridiculous. It's frustrating because your personal experience doesn't mean it. But maybe their personal experience actually doesn't jive with yours. I got the feeling that the Jesse Waters, the Sean Hannitys, Dan Bongino, the Ben Shapiros, the people out there, the Megyn Kellys, like they're not experiencing it like you. Tucker Carlson, like they were catching millions and millions of dollars before all this stuff. They didn't give a shit about something costing more. You think they know what like a dozen eggs cost other than they read it in a headline? How many of them actually gone out there, put a dozen eggs up on there, beep, scanned it through the scanner, and then put it in a bag and took it home and then cooked them up themselves? Almost none of those people did. So for those of you that are experiencing a thing and going, hey, this is really frustrating. Like, I don't feel like they're talking about me. They're not. They're experiencing the economy differently than you, and it actually does benefit them. So it's worth knowing we're talking about two different kinds of people. And it's probably useful to hear voices that actually say, hey, I have the same experience as you. I am just like you. I literally am just like you. This room doesn't even have these cool walls. These walls are something I built, and I brought them from another house that I rented. How about that? It looks really presentable, though, doesn't it? We did a good job. I'll pat myself on the back. Folks, support the program by giving us a like. It's free. There's 1,100 people plus watching over on Rumble. We appreciate all of you that are watching live. Those of you watching over on YouTube, same story. Give us a thumbs up. It's free. It costs you nothing. It benefits us by boosting our algorithmic little thing. It gives us the audience that we ought to have, I think. It shares a common perspective. And again, I'm happy for some people to disagree with me. It doesn't bother me. Not even a little bit. Disagree all you want. Let's do it in good faith. That's the way things are supposed to be done in this country. All right, let's end with the SAVE Act because I think it's super important and I want to hear it from the other side. Final thoughts here. The SAVE Act, which Anna Paulina Luna was rambling about when she was talking about such as the Iraq and the maps in South Africa. The SAVE Act is something we're going to cover from the American Center for Progress or the Center for American Progress. You can find this at AmericanProgress.org. It'll be linked in the comments to all the different videos here. The SAVE Act overview and facts. Here's why I found this really fascinating, guys. Very simply, there's a graphic, the SAVE Act. Quick summary. And the reason why it's so interesting to me is it seems as though they are presenting this to you. And by you, I mean, generally speaking, conservative, maybe RINO Republicans, people who are independent minded, that do not have to like have one answer or the other, and that you want to fix certain things, and they're going to try to dissuade you. These quote unquote facts are not meant to convince the people that are progressives that have already bought the talking point that it's really mean and bad and it's going to stop things. They're actually trying to point out how it'll disproportionately affect you as a regular conservative, maybe Republican voter. Are you ready? Once you framed it that way, it's very interesting. Quick summary here. Bullet point number 1. The SAFE Act, which is the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, would require all American citizens registering to vote or updating their registration information to present documented or documentary proof of citizenship in person. They highlight that. That's a bad thing, okay, according to them. For the vast majority of Americans, this would be a passport or birth certificate. Okay, now we're tracking. Now we're going to get real shady about it. Government-issued driver's licenses, including Real ID, as well as military or tribal IDs, do not satisfy the bill's requirements. So the thing that you carry with you every day is not good enough. All right, I'm with you so far. Why would that be? What does it take to get a Real ID in the United States? This is what AI is actually really good for. Required documentation checklist. Here we go. You need to be able to prove your legal name and your birth date. And that is a valid passport or a certificate copy, a certified copy of your birth certificate, right? So passport, birth certificate, same as they just said. We were like, okay, well, why does a Real ID not work? Because this is the other part of it. You also should be able to, or you can provide a social security card, a W-2, or a pay stub. Interesting. Lawful status can be presented by both a passport, a birth certificate, or valid immigration documents, including a green card. Huh. So you don't have to be a citizen, it turns out. Then it wants you the proof of your principal residency, and marriage certificate works, and a divorce decree or a court order changing your name if it's different than the birth certificate. So very interestingly enough, the big piece of the Real ID is that you can also get a Real ID if you are in fact not an American citizen. And that's relevant. And those of us who want American citizens only to vote, we understand why that would be. But they're not presenting that as part of the argument. The legislation would invert the responsibility to verify a person's eligibility and citizenship status from election officials to government onto every single American citizen, making citizens required to convince the government they're eligible to exercise their right to vote. Now, if only we could get people on the political left to realize that you have a right to keep and bear arms, and the government has to actually show probable cause to be able to infringe upon it. Do you think they see these things? Because when I look in the world and see a parallel that is one-to-one, you got a problem with people not being able to exercise their legal right to vote. They are entitled to this vote, just like I'm entitled to carry a firearm, and you want to legislate it. And they got no problem with having you jump through hoops and show fingerprints and getting some law enforcement officer and getting some other people to high five it and to go through some sort of process and training. And we need to make sure that you're smart enough and certified enough. You know the laws and all that. And you got to do all that. You got to get your permit. And even Jeanine Pirro is on board with it. The MAGA people. That's where it gets really interesting to me. Fine. I got no problem. Show whatever it is that shows that you're a citizen. But birth certificate and passport do not seem like a burden because they're required for you to have a driver's license and real ID if you want to do anything else in this country. They got no problems with that. They got no problems with all the crazy stuff I've got to do just to get a freaking suppressor, which essentially is a glorified version of this coffee cup. It just has threading on the end of it and a couple little baffles on the inside that are welded. To be able to turn the volume down on my super loud rifles, I need to go through massive headaches and like in and of itself, it's nothing. It's a tube. How crazy is this? I just want to say, okay, so here we go. The SAVE Act would change the way all citizens register to vote upon enactment, and it would upend online voter registration. Yes, please. By the way, I'm still registered to vote in California, just so anybody, if you guys are curious. I moved out of California when I enlisted in the military on June, what was it, 6/6/09. On June 6th of 2009, I left California forever for residency, and I have not been registered to vote. I haven't tried to register to vote there ever since. And since 2009 to 2026 now, I am still registered and I still get updates that they send ballots to me. And I can't undo it online, by the way. They said send some sort of certified mail to them. It's like, screw you, dude. Just keep stealing your elections. I don't care. So you can no longer do online voter registration, which seems totally reasonable to those of us that actually want secure elections. It would make it impossible to mail in a registration application, also possible. If you can't get out of bed to do anything, I'm not sure I care whether or not you can vote. I'm just saying, why? And it would eliminate voter registration drives. That all seems great. Here's the statistics, and this is why it's so funny. Approximately 146 million citizens do not possess a valid passport, but they do have a birth certificate because they were born here if they're citizens, right? 153 million people voted in the 2024 presidential election. There's like 330 million people in this country, so those numbers don't necessarily even have to even like co-align with each other. But let's pretend like they do. The high rates of passport ownerships are overwhelmingly concentrated in blue states, while low rates are concentrated in red states. This is the left-wing Center for American Progress. And what are they trying to do? Convince you it would be bad for red state voters. These are the people that are going to go out there and try to change your mind. Do you realize that it will disproportionately affect red states and that you're not going to have as many voters? It's like, oh, well, that seems just fine with us, doesn't it? So why are you trying to tell us this? Because these are the talking points so they can convince you. In 7 states, less than 1/3 of citizens have a valid passport. What about their birth certificate? It was a 2-form. Oh, they ignore that. West Virginia, Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, and Oklahoma do not have passports. I'm fine with that. They also hang out in America. I don't have a passport anymore. I've got some expired ones, but I don't have a current one. But I've got all the things I need. Only 4 states do more than 2/3 of citizens have a valid passport, and that's New York, Massachusetts, California, and New Jersey. And guess what? Those people are also deeply blue. And so why would you not want to inspire more blue voters? Because more wealthy people apparently vote blue and also have passports. Oh, because you're lying. 84% of women who change their surname due to marriage do not have a birth certificate with their legal name on it. Guess what? They all have a marriage certificate. The SAVE Act makes no mention of being able to show a marriage certificate or a change of name documentation. I'm sure that could be easily fixed. So rather than argue, hey, they should also just have a parameter that says you can show a marriage certificate where you've changed your name or legal process where it's been done. And by the way, that happens all the time. My wife went through it. Many of you women did as well. That's just what happens. But they want to point out 84% of women might be disenfranchised. Well, that's one way to get to the 19th. Okay, the SAVE Act poses serious socioeconomic issues. This is where it comes down to. This is a class war. If you guys probably know, working class Americans and lower income Americans, only 1 in 4 with a high school degree have a valid passport. But of course, they probably still have a birth certificate because they've had to show it to get a job like a regular person. 1 in 5 people with an income below $50,000 have a valid passport. Again, now they're trying to act like it's the coastal elites that don't want you to do this, and yet they don't want you, a conservative person, to back this, because they are going to point out how it would negatively affect you, even though everybody knows it would do the opposite. So I just thought that's super interesting. Why are we not talking about the way the lefties are trying to do it? And then lastly, I'm going to put this in the comments so you guys can read it. 10 races that will decide control of the United States Senate. That's the case, but it doesn't decide what it should. What should be happening if our system functioned, going all the way back to what I talked about at the beginning of the podcast, and what we talk about frequently here, 1913, if we didn't have a 17th Amendment, all of this stuff would be not a big deal. And those 10 races would be for super majority control, not fractional majority control by 1. We are not meant to have a system that is decided by 1 or 2 votes in the Senate, where we have to get rid of this filibuster, where we cannot have a protection for the minority. We're supposed to have a super majority that overwhelmingly does what it needs to do. Only when the states agree to it, that the states are on board with it, because we are supposed to be, quote unquote, United States of America, not the federal states of America, which looks like this. We're not supposed to be ruled by these people. They're supposed to do national stuff only. And most of the stuff is supposed to happen at your local level. But the fact that we can't even get free and fair elections at the state level means you now have the federal government trying to fix a problem that is created both by the federal government over 125 years, and then add on to the fact of it that we had states usurp it. They just gave away their power in the same way Congress gave away their power to the executive. So we're a jacked up place. And as I keep trying to gently say to people, I have no expectation we're going to vote our way out of this. I don't think you do either. So that is what I've got for today's program. And I also have something a little bit fun and amusing, and I saw this in my random scrolling, and I will play it for you today. This is a little blip from a guy who does a great impersonation of Donald Trump. And he also has kind of an uplifting message about Down syndrome. And sometimes I find these really comforting. This is kind of like this is a funny way to tell people to be pro-life. Because if you are on the left, one of the big issues that you're worried about is abortion, apparently, and making sure that you can still kill babies. And the one thing they always cite are pregnancies that have some sort of anomaly. And Down syndrome is the one that they always hold over there. This is Shane Gillis, who's a great Trump impersonator, and oftentimes performs to blue crowds despite having kind of a red message. He's talking about autism versus Down syndrome. He does it in a lighthearted way. I think we can all kind of smile about this. So that's how I'm going to end today's show.
Down syndrome. Down syndrome? All right. I'll do that. But I will say this. I like it. I'm pro it. I have family members that have it. It's fun. That is weird because everybody's always like, oh, it's the best thing you could be. They're happy as fuck, dude. They have the best life. Dude, autistic kids, they're like cats. A little skittish. You're not sure if they like you at all. Down syndrome are dogs. They're the dogs, dude. You get home from somewhere, they're like, where the fuck have you been, dude? I got so much to show you. This is gonna be the best day. Ask a Down syndrome kid, do you want to go for a walk? Like, yeah. Like, throw a ball. Throw a ball.
The difference between dogs and cats, brilliant. Absolutely great stuff. All right, so hopefully that made you smile just a little bit. Made me smile. I like it. I hope you guys have a great day on this Wednesday. You guys are already commenting and go ahead and put those comments in the actual comments. Don't just leave them in the chat. The love chromosome is what people refer to it as. That's been my experience in church, seeing kids who have Downs. Like, they tend to be like the happiest, sweetest people. I'm sure there's some downsides to it as well, but the loyalty and the autism sort of as cats bit. Absolutely wonderful. All right. God bless all of you. I hope you have a fantastic day. We're not trying to bum anybody out. Let's just see the world as it is and then try to make good decisions, like carrying a gun if you need to. Don't worry about the stupid local laws. I'm out of here. See you again tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.